Hello, everyone. Welcome to the MO1MMA podcast. Talking about UFC Perth, and this card is not very good. I was hoping for better, and then I got to the co-main event of Jimmy Crute versus Ivan Erslan and went, oh boy. Also, there is a bunch of... So, for those who are unaware, my general thoughts is that everything 170 and below tends to be relatively good. Because to get to the UFC as a 170-pound fighter or below, particularly below, you tend to have to be actually relatively good. Now, women's MMA has a different scale, but that's the men's MMA scale. And on this fight card, we have 205 heavyweight, 205 middleweight, going on down further, another heavyweight fight. So it is not stacked with the divisions that tend to be that guarantee, for one thing. And on top of that, there's a lot of fights that just don't have much of a result that I'm looking forward to in terms of moving the whole roster forward. Now, does that mean that there are no good fights on this card? No. I mean, the main event has a lot of potential, and it's a high stakes fight that I am looking forward to, even if there is a rough version of it that does exist. Jack Jenkins versus Ramon Tavares. That should be a pretty fun time as well. Looking on further down, I'm interested to see what Navajo Sterling brings out against Adolfo Bellato, because I have faith in him to turn into something pretty cool, and I'm hoping to see a step forward, essentially, with that fight. Low-key, Jonathan McCallum versus Zoban Elliott's a pretty cool fight. And further on down, you have the debut of Michelle Montague, which I'm here for. And also Loma Lukumi versus Alexa Thenara. That should be also pretty good. So there is stuff on here. It's just that there is also stuff that is not really to be looked forward to. So let's get it out of the way. The usual betting speech here, guys. I am going to be talking about fight betting. I am going to be giving you information that you may choose to use to guide your bets. I'm going to talk about my own bets. I'm going to talk about fight odds. You should always remember that does not mean that you should bet the house on any of these fights, because MMA is a chaotic environment. It is not a path to financial freedom. You should bet accordingly, by which I mean whatever is a small amount for you is what you should go with. Okay? I'm not gonna tell you what your unit size should be. I'm not going to tell you what mine is even. I'm just going to simply say, keep it low risk, keep it fun. Okay? There you go. This came up after a guy at one point literally messaged me on Twitter and was so angry that I had given him advice that led to him putting down a $20,000 bet that wound up being a loss. I would never bet that. I would never touch a $20,000 bet on a UFC or MMA fight at all. I don't even know what sport it would be, but it certainly is not this sport. So let's talk about these fights. Let's get it on. Let's do this. Carlos Ulberg, Dominic Reyes. Weird mirror match fight in a lot of ways. They are 1 year apart in age. They are the same height. They have the same reach. And in a lot of ways, they have a very, very similar story to them, because they're both guys that when they came in, people were very excited about because they had done cool stuff on the regional scene. They had knocked people out. They were doing the thing. They were making things happen. And in the case of Ulberg, he hit a early snag with Kennedy Nzechukwu, and then he got past it, started making things happen. He's beaten Fabio Charant, Safon Nchukwu, Nick Mariano, where is that guy? Seriously, what the heck? Ihor Potieria, Dawoon Jung, Alonzo Metafield, Volkan Oezdemir, Jan Blachowicz. It's great, it's fine, it's great, it's amazing. And most of that was finishes in the middle there. And then he got to the Volkan and the Jan Blachowicz fights, and I think everyone was a little bit let down by the fact that he didn't pass that with flying colors. I think there was a hope that he would break the mold and become something really special. And instead, it seems like he is a guy who might just be the latest generation of kind of good. And then with Dominic Reyes, you had him come in, you had him pick up the win against Joaquin Christensen and Jeremy Kimball. Who cares? And then Jared Cannonier, Ovince St. Preux, Volkan Oezdemir, Chris Weidman. He's in a title shot. He has a phenomenal fight with John Jones that he probably won 3 rounds to 2. Most people's scorecards, that including mine. And it's like, whoa, this guy is something special. Like that, was that the best John Jones ever? No, that was John Jones, probably similar to the Alexander Gustafsson fight, not really taking the opponent as seriously as he probably should. But then he got knocked out by Jan Blachowicz, Yuri Prohaska, and Ryan Spahn. And we thought he was done. I thought he was done. I will say that freely. I was like, He's young enough. He was like 32, I think, at the time. After the Spahn fight, it's like 3 fights in a row. He looks something broken. The confidence is gone. Comes back, knocks out Dustin Jacoby. That's pretty cool. Knocks out Anthony Smith. Who cares? Let's be real. And then knocks out Nikita Krylov. He's kind of back on here. And a lot of people want to say, hey, he's back towards becoming something special. I'm not convinced. There is a serious asterisk next to all 3 of those wins. In the case of Dustin Jacoby, it's the fact that Jacoby's always been a physically limited fighter. He's always kind of been on that lower end of the 205 physical spectrum. This is a weight class that thrives on chaotic athleticism, and it's something Jacoby just never really had. And it's why Jacoby has lost fights like his fight to Alonzo Menifield, for example, a fight where, let's be real, he is better than Alonzo Menifield. He just can't compete with him on a striking level, on a power level, I should say. And then he got knocked out by Reyes. And the Smith fight was a ghost of Anthony Smith. And then the Nikita Krylov fight is, I'm not kidding. Like, go back and watch that Anthony Smith fight. It is sad. And it should have been the end of Smith's career, but he got one more fight in, and man, there were various points where Smith's career should have been over. Anyways, and then there's the Krylov fight, and you can see Krylov also getting knocked out by Bogdan Gushkov right after that. And there's a significant problem with like what Krylov is trying to do right now. He's going through something upstairs that really short circuits him. So you have Ulberg, who has fought the guys at the very top of the division and looked maybe a little bit of a letdown. And you have Reyes, who is remaking himself over broken fighters. I have to trust Ulberg, is what it comes down to. Ulberg is a well-trained kickboxer. He is able to keep range, be defensively stable, and I don't know if I can rely on Reyes to solve that puzzle time and time again. Because something that has kind of made a lot of Reyes' success as a fighter happen has been guys who cannot keep the range on him, either because it's not an option, i.e., height, reach, etc., because Reyes is 6'4". Reyes does have a 77-inch reach. This is, substantial. Or guys who were not really defensively sound. That would be a Krylov, would be a great example of that. Somebody very, very hittable. So I got to go with Ulberg. Now, would I be surprised if Reyes could pick this up? Not at all. He, I think, is the more rawly dangerous of the two. The one who in a snap of my fingers could turn a fight around. That's Reyes. I don't think Ulberg has that capability at this level, I should say. Although, who knows? I mean, Ryan Spahn did knock him out, so obviously, questions about the chin. So you have that dynamicism with Reyes, but I don't know. I got to go with Ulberg. It's going to be very, very interesting, and there is a version of this fight that is really fun. There's also a version of this fight that is really not fun, that is really, really bad. And the betting odds here have Ulberg as the favorite, minus 250 to minus 275, plus 195 to plus 210 on Reyes. KO is obviously an option here, and I'm going to go with it because I really don't want to see 5 rounds of action between these two, because I don't think a 5-round version of this fight is fun. However, it could happen. It could happen. But I don't think either guy is really that durable. So I think at some point somebody's got to get cracked by something. Co-main event, Jimmy Crute versus Ivan Urslan. This is a ridiculously bad fight for the co-main event. Both on a meaningful level because Ivan Urslan does not mean anything in the UFC. I don't think Jimmy Crute does at this point. Crute's tried to retire like twice. I'm just not really here for it. I think the odds could be wider actually because it's Crute at minus 180 to minus 200 and Urslan plus 150 to plus 165. Here's the thing. I don't think Urslan really has the takedown defense or the game to avoid the takedowns to actually survive against him. Now, he did survive against Jimmy Crute, or not Jimmy Crute, fighting Crute here. Ion Cutelaba, who is like the Eastern European version of Crute, although more self-destructive. And Urslan was able to drag that fight late and actually start to do some things. So that's on the table. There is a version of this fight where Crute has his way with him early. He survives. He gets to the late rounds where Crute's starting to fall apart. And the fact that Crute has no technical striking game to speak of becomes a problem. But Urslan's just not. I don't even know why they signed him. Like, I don't take offense of him being signed or anything like that, but he's just a very nuts and bolts striker who inherently doesn't avoid a clinch or dirty boxing or wrestling game, and also is not very good at it. So I'm going with Crute by submission. This is not a good co-main event. This is not particularly good matchmaking at all. Could Urslan win? Yeah, I don't like relying on Crute because Crute is number one. There tends to be a lot of like chaotic Crute getting hurt moments in like all of his fights, and two, I don't believe that Crute has any interest in becoming a better fighter. I don't even think Crute has an interest in being a fighter, which is a distinct problem. But I am picking him here. Jack Jenkins versus Ramon Tavares. Jenkins is the favorite here at minus 275 to minus 300, plus 210 to plus 240 for Tavares. Jenkins has had some problems lately, losing to Gabriel Santos and Chepe Mariscal, but those are fighters who I think offer a lot that Tavares does not. Santos with his grappling and his athleticism, and Mariscal with his... I guess there's some of Mariscal in Tavares, but again, he's a more... Number one, he has a way better clinch game. Number two, he's really doing way better than I expected to when they signed Chepe Mariscal. Wow. Whew. Holy moly. But there's a dog and an adaptive and a tritive game to Chepe Mariscal that I don't think Tavares has. Tavares' performances on the regional scene were not particularly inspiring. I had no problem with him coming in and fighting on Contender Series. It's fine. But it's a lot of dudes who are not very good. Like, I'm going to read you off the records here of his opponents. 1-0, 2-6, 3-4, 3-13, 4-3. The most notable fight he had was probably against Martin Day, when Martin Day basically gave up and kind of retired. Martin Day is a reasonable kickboxer who was in the UFC way back in the day. Well, not that far back, actually, 2018, 2020. But he beat him. And then he beat Charles Crazy Horse Bennett. Enough said. 30, 41, and 2 at the time. 5-5 James Dunn. And then he gets to Contender Series, loses to Series City while missing weight. Beats Cortavius Romius, who we've been through is not particularly amazing. Misses weight in his UFC debut against Series City, should have lost, in my opinion, and then loses to Davey Grant. He's kind of, by UFC standards, just kind of there. He's tough, but he's kind of just a punching bag. You'll be able to hit him pretty easily. And if you're Jack Jenkins, that means low kicks. That means punches. That means not really testing out, I think, the weakest part of Jenkins' game is that he is somewhat of a confident grappler while being quite bad at it. So I got to go with Jenkins, get those thunderous low kicks going. That being said, I do think Tavares will probably be able to do at least okay against the leg kicks because he does like to come forward, does like to sort of take this out of kicking range. So if it winds up being mostly pocket exchanges, I just don't think Jenkins has all that much power in his hands. And Tavares is pretty durable. So I'll say it goes the distance, but Jenkins, if Jenkins doesn't win this fight, and it's not by, Tavares just kind of having a really big moment or really showing improvement, it's really long-term an issue. Jake Matthews versus Neil Magny. Matthews is the favorite here, minus 400, minus 500. That is too wide. Plus 285 to plus 350. I am going to pick Matthews here because we all know by now, you know the drill about a Neil Magny fight. He is an IQ test fight. Don't clinch with him. Don't try to wrestle with him all that much. And have an answer for a jab in his 6'3" frame. And you should actually be able to win. Because Magny is not particularly dangerous as a striker. He is a guy who sucks the life out of you as a grappler, who lures you into just kind of clinching with him over and over, and he starts to work. And Matthews, as of late, which is surprising because a couple years ago I would never have said this, has actually been a relatively smart fighter. He faced a very similar challenge to this in Phil Rowe, who is a more dangerous version of Neil Magny, but a less effective version of Neil Magny, ironically. And of course, the Chidi and Jaquani fight where he actually just was like, you know what? You have a giant gap in your game. I'm just going to exploit that and I'm going to beat you very, very easily. And the fact that he's 5'11" and a 73-inch reach at 170 means that he has fought a number of guys who have particularly long reaches and are actually reasonably tall. So the whole freak out when he sees Magny, when he feels Magny's jab at a level that he can't necessarily comprehend, shouldn't be a huge deal. He's fought Michael Morales, who has a 79-inch reach. He's fought Phil Rowe, who has an 80.5-inch reach, for example. These are guys who have that same ability that Magny has to hit you from way too far away for your own good. Chidi and Jaquani would be another example, a guy with an 80-inch reach, who's 6'3", and none of these times did he panic. Now, there is a version of Jake Matthews that absolutely loses this fight. It's the guy who was around in 2022, losing to Matthew Semmelsberger, but I am going to pick him. I don't think he finishes him because he's not necessarily a great finisher in any way, and Magny does still seem to be that durable dude. That dude who is going to be pretty hard to finish unless your name is Michael well, you know what? He's been finished twice recently. Michael Morales and Carlos Prates. We might be getting to the point where someone like Matthews could finish him, but I don't have that kind of faith in him, and I am not touching the 400 to 500 line on him with a 10-foot pole. I have zero interest in that. I would bet on Jenkins as a favorite. I would bet on Crute as a favorite. I would bet on Ulberg as a favorite. I would not touch Jake Matthews at this line. Louis Sutherland versus Justin Tafa is a heavyweight fight that I do not care about. I do not really know why we are assigning guys without even going through Contender Series from Levels Fight League in I think that's a Dutch. I think it's in the Netherlands, right? Yeah, Dutch Fight League. Is Sutherland any good? I don't know. The only fight that means anything is that Slim Trabelski fight in Bellator, and he didn't embarrass himself, but he did lose. He's a bad grappler, but Tafa's not gonna use that. So I'll go with the guy who's 3 inches taller, 2 inches longer, and hasn't been knocked out yet when Tafa has. So Sutherland by TKO or KO. Tafa is bad, and it's about time to get past that. Also, Tafa's the favorite, so if you're betting on this fight, absolutely bet on the underdog, because there is no reason to bet on Justin Tafa or Junior Tafa at any point when they are favorites. Tom Nolan versus Charlie Campbell. Betting odds. I should actually read the odds, shouldn't I? Plus 100 to minus 105 on Sutherland. Minus 115 to minus 122 on Tafa. Tom Nolan versus Charlie Campbell. This has Nolan as the favorite at minus 150 to minus 163, plus 120 to plus 126 on Campbell. I'm just going to take the underdog here. These are two guys that came into the UFC with a reasonable amount of hype that I did not in any way buy. Nolan is 6'3", which is massive for a lightweight. He has a 73-inch reach somehow, which is weird. But He's chinny. He doesn't really move his head as well as he should. He's scrappy. He's got heart. He's got size. But that's kind of it. I don't think he's actually all that good. Will he win some fights? Yeah, he'll win some fights in the... He'll win some fights basically as a lower-end Neil Magny, essentially, because he's huge. And fighters will make mistakes with that going into play. And in Campbell's case, he hits hard. He's got heavy hands, but it's all very one shot at a time. Anytime he tries to throw a combination, it is ugly. He has all the physical makings of a fighter, but like without the coordination, essentially. That's what it comes down to. So could this be an interesting fight? I guess. Could it be entertaining? Yes. Could it be sloppy? Almost certainly. So I'm going with Campbell by knockout, but honestly, if Nolan was the underdog, I'd probably just pick Nolan. So I would say I have no real feel for this fight. I will be making a small bet on Campbell. Navajo Sterling versus Rodolfo Bellato. Why is this fight so low down on the card? Bellato has had a okay UFC run, and Sterling, despite the fact that he's not finishing people, is winning. He beat Ivan Erslan, who is up there, and Bellato had a draw with Jimmy Crute, who is in the co-main event. So I have no idea why this is so far down. I'm picking Sterling. It is a hope pick because he's backed by City Kickboxing. He is 6'4" with a 79-inch reach. He has the reach. He has the frame. He has the athletic ability to be a really, really good fighter. He is sort of the next Ulberg in that regard in terms of the mold, that there is every ingredient to be good, and now it's a matter of just actually placing things in together and actually, being good. Now, Bellato is a tough challenge. He's a far, far, far tougher challenge, I think, than Erslan or Tukotokos, who were the guys that Sterling went to decision with. He is powerful. He is durable. He is aggressive. He will do the thing, and he's also big, 6'3", 77.5-inch reach. He could fight at heavyweight, and that wouldn't even be a problem. So I'm going with Sterling just on the hope. Like, really, it'll be very disappointing if Bellato wins, because it means that yet another hyper prospect with the ingredients to be very good has not failed, but at the very least taken a detour that I'm not necessarily going to enjoy. I am going to say it's by decision because the betting odds have it like TKO and stuff. If you did not finish Ivan Erslan and you did not finish Tukotokas, I am not picking you to finish Rodolfo Bellato. It's not happening. This is a significant step up from those two fights. Andre Petroski versus Cam Roston is one of the least interesting fights of the card. It's minus 167 to minus 185 on Petroski. It's plus 133 to plus 150 on Roston. The issue for Roston is I have seen him face only one capable, competent wrestler with the strength, the power, and the ability to get a fight to the ground consistently. And it is Torres Finney, who took him down 10 times, and it took till the third round for Roston to stop stuffing anything. And Torres Finney has nothing left in the third round, so you better damn well start to do that. He still ended up on bottom for like 4 minutes of that round. So how do you pick him against Petroski? How do you do that? Petroski is not a great fighter. He's not a world beater. He's a very meat and potatoes striker who clings into the clinch and takes you down because he's very strong. The problem is that is Torres Finney as well, except that Petroski's actually 6 feet tall and like a normal height for a 185er. So I've got to go with Petroski. It's not the sexy pick. It's not the exciting pick. Roston, I think, is probably reasonably okay. He doesn't seem to have any major physical limitations. He's big, 6'3", 75-inch reach. He's got a little bit of pop in his hands. He's got a little bit of athleticism. But, there's the issue that against anyone who has a competent wrestling game, the only example of him facing that is its failure. So maybe he learns from that. Maybe he gets in there with a way, way better wrestling game plan, technical training regime, anything. Regiment, I should say, not regime. But I kind of have to see it before I pick it. Jonathan McAuliffe versus Oban Elliott. This one's kind of interesting. I'm a little surprised that McAuliffe is minus 105 to plus 105, and it's minus 120 to minus 125 on Elliott. I kind of see this as a even money fight. McAuliffe's fight against Kevin Jousset was a overachievement. He is a creative striker, very heavy on the kicks. He is quick. He's got good power. He's got good snap on those kicks as well. Like there's a lot going on there. He's also got a 77-inch reach, which is substantial at 170. Elliott, for example, has only a 72-inch reach. So there is that. I do worry about his grappling instincts. A lot of his regional stuff is him just kind of doing dumb stuff and it working because of, the limitations of the opposition. So I'm worried about that. But Elliott is, I don't know, Elliott is weird because on one hand you have that Preston Parsons fight where he actually really shut down a pretty good, like a limited and everything else, but a good clinch grappler. And then you have I'm not going to pronounce his name correctly, am I? Ko. Taking him down and having his way with him. And it's a bit weird in that regard. Elliott is a good volume striker. He's got good creativity as well. He's got, good feel for counterpunching and hurting people on the counter. But I'm going to go with McAuliffe. I'm just like, I guess I see a little bit more of a ceiling for him. That reach, that kicking game, the speed, the snap, the athleticism. It's there to do very, very well, even if there's a lot of concerns I have about him in terms of like, not just athleting, not just physically his way out of stuff. So there is concerns, but I've got him by decision here. And it could also just be that he is the underdog. That's on the table. And I've not been the biggest believer in Oban Elliott. There's really just that Preston Parsons fight where I was impressed with him. And then other than that, it's been obviously a successful run in the UFC. Obviously, he has gone 3-1. But Val Woodburn, Basil Hafes, I don't actually think they're particularly good. And then, like I said, the Sohee Ko fight that he lost, and I have significant concerns about Ko realistically. Anyways, yeah, I'm gonna go with McAuliffe, but this could just be me being an Oban Elliott hater. Jamie Mullarkey versus Rolando Bedoya. Mullarkey's the favorite at minus 110 to minus 121, plus 100 to minus 111 on Bedoya. I'm nervous about this because obviously Mullarkey's had a rough run lately. Back-to-back knockout losses is not exactly a good place to be. It is clear that the durability that he had is losing at the UFC level, but at the same time, I can't help but think that this looks exactly like the fight he tends to win. He's not a great athlete. He's not a great dynamic fighter. What he is big, 6 feet tall, 74-inch reach at 155. He's well-rounded in the sense that he can utilize a range striking game, a pocket striking game, a clinch boxing game, a takedown game, and a grappling game. And he generally has a pretty good game plan for how to deal with people. And Bedoya, I just think that there's a lot that he doesn't really compete in because his game is almost entirely relatively high output pocket boxing with a decent idea for stinging people on the counter and a good feel for that. There's some significant wrestling limitations to him. There's limitations at range to him. And as much as 155 is obviously a better home for him than his 170 debut, I still think that there's something very, very much missing in the whole thing. So, is there a chance that Mullarkey is shot and he just gets knocked out? It's on the table. It's there against anybody they elected to put him up against. But this feels a lot more like Mullarkey's fights with the likes of, honestly, and a far less dangerous version of the fight that he won against Francisco Prado, or even the John McDessie fight that he won, or the Michael Johnson fight that he won, or the Devontae Smith fight that he won, or the Conor Worthy fight that he won. It doesn't feel like Mauricio Houfi, Nasrat Haqparast, Muhammad Naimov, Jalen Turner, or even back to like his very, very early run in the UFC with Faris Yam and Brad Riddell. I guess you could say the Riddell fight maybe, but like Riddell is a way, way better version of what Bedoya is trying to be. Colby Thickness versus Josiah Musasa. This is my big underdog pick here because Thickness is plus 120 to plus 135, minus 150 to minus 163 on Musasa. Here's the thing. Musasa has all the potential in the world. Dude is a physical freak. He is powerful. He is explosive. He is fast. There's a little bit of creativity there. He seems to have some cardio. And he doesn't have the front runner syndrome that you see with a lot of like super athletes where as soon as the fight gets tough, they shut down. He keeps doing that. Like his Contender Series fight went the distance and was difficult at points. And he found solutions. But he is super raw. There is no defensive concepts to his game except being fast. Nothing. He's coming out of the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Central African MMA scene is not exactly proven. We're seeing some things with like Atiba Gauthier, for example, coming in and like so on. And obviously there's an untapped pool of major potential in Africa for MMA. However, he's still training there as far as I know. So I can't pick him against Thickness. Thickness has his own limitations. He's not particularly athletic. Like if you're asking me 5 years down the road, which of these guys is still here making noise? It's Musasa if he survives this early going. But Thickness is a really solid technical fighter with good coaches and good game plan ability and all the mental aspects you could want in a fighter. Yes, he himself does not have a great resume, but like he's as ready as he's ever going to be. I think is what it comes down to. So I'm going with Thickness by decision. And I'm surprised he's the underdog here. I'm very surprised. Luana Carolina versus Michelle Montague. Montague, for those of you who do not watch PFL, had a pretty good run through there with a bunch of submission victories against reasonable competition. Like the problem is that outside of the UFC, 135 and 145 are like very much a wasteland. So in that regard, I'm really happy she's here. I'm really happy she's been picked up. She's the first 135er in a long ass time that I'm like reasonably excited for. She's a Kayla Harrison training partner over at ATT. So it's all, it's all the good stuff. Get the clinch, get the takedowns, get the back in, get the rear naked choke, do your thing. It's simple, but it's effective. And Luana Carolina is probably the most physical fighter that she has fought up until this date, but she is a mess. And also, the thing that works against Carolina is that in a lot of situations, she does not make the correct, or at the very least, I should say, she does not make the safe decision. And against people who can make her pay, it's going to be a problem. And it's just that like a lot of the fighters she's fought up until now have been either physically unable to make her pay or technically unable to make her pay. It's wins against Lucy Pudilova, notably physically limited fighter. Juliana Stolarenko, notably limited fighter, just full stop. Ivana Petrovich, who has some physical attributes, but like doesn't really have a game, and somehow beat Lupi Godinez back in the day, which is bizarre. But Lupi has random fights like that. I don't know. And then there's losses to JoJo Wood, Molly McCann, Ariana De Silva. So this is probably more like the De Silva fight than anything else. So I am going to go with Montague to get her down, get the back, because Carolina will make high-risk decisions on the ground. I think Montague should be able to make her pay for that. And she's the favorite at minus 225 to minus 250, plus 175 to plus 200 on Carolina. Those are legitimate. The next fight is honestly just a pure-on coin flip. Both Brando Perisic and Elisha Ellison are physically cut out for the UFC's heavyweight division, or at least they seem to be. They both seem to have finishing power. They have the physical fundamentals, but like their entire career is just pure K and crushing. And there's nothing I can do with that, honestly, is what it comes down to. I'm picking Perisic basically just because He is training with City Kickboxing. That is a good gym. That hasn't really laid an egg. But like if Ellison comes out and is just way more athletic and way more physical, it's not going to shock me. It's I don't know. I'm hoping for a quick knockout either way. So Perisic by TKO. He is the favorite minus 200 to minus 235, plus 163 to plus 185 on Ellison. And this has got it. I think this is the only fight on the card. Let me just quickly look here. That is betting wise favored to be an under, as in under half the fight, under 1.5 rounds. There you go. That's the uniqueness, I guess, of putting in two guys who we just have no idea what they can do in terms of like defense. Anyways, card opens up with Loma Lukebumi versus Alexa Thanara. Looking forward to this fight, even though every time I have to pick against Loma, I'm a little unhappy. The odds here are plus 175 to plus 200 on Loma, minus 235 to minus 265 on Thanara. It's just a size pick. I do think Loma is better at virtually all the aspects of MMA because she is very good and very well-rounded. She is a skilled Thai boxer. She is a surprisingly effective clinch wrestler. She is pretty effective on the ground as well, but she is 5'1" and an atom weight against a 6'4" proper straw weight who has a 5.5-inch reach advantage over her. It's just a size thing when it comes down to it. Thanara is a quality grappler. Excluding the loss she has to Bruna Brazil by guillotine choke, which is weird. If anyone ever has a link to Thunder Fight 20 in Brazil, I would love to see that fight. I would love to see what the heck happened there, because Bruna Brazil is not a bad fighter by any means, but that is not how you should be losing to her as a grappling specialist. But anyways, yeah, I just have to go with Thanara to be able to kind of bully her. Not that she's untechnical or that it's going to just be a pure bully sort of in the negative connotation fight, but she's just bigger, stronger, and they're very likely to end up at the clinch at some point and just be the position to exploit that strength and size advantage. So Thanara by decision. I'll be back after the fights, obviously, with my thoughts, my recap, and so on. We'll see how I do. I'm fairly confident in most of my picks here. There is a couple of exceptions. Obviously, there's the Perisic versus Ellison fight. I think I was very clear on that one being a bit of a crapshoot. And on top of that, maybe I'm overlooking Oban Elliott again, and he can do some things. And obviously, Josiah Busasa would be honestly fantastic to be wrong about that fight with Colby Thickness, because he has loads of potential. And like I said, Campbell versus Nolan, I think I'm just taking the underdog. So there's that. But everything else, fairly confident, fairly willing to say that that should be what happens. And down below you'll find some links to my video gaming stuff and social medias. So check that out. And if you made it this far, you might want to check out the Discord for the Fight Masters, which Season 5 kicks off with this event, with Juliana defending her title, and we will see if she can win a third championship. She's won 2 out of the 4 so far. Anyways, have a good one, everybody.